It's the night of December 2nd, 1984. A factory in Bhopal, India, releases a cloud of deadly gas that silently blankets the sleeping city. What happened next would become the world's worst industrial disaster, leaving thousands dead and a legacy of pain that continues to this day. So let's get into it. How could this have happened, and who was ultimately responsible?
Just listen to how one observer described the scene. The immediate aftermath was just pure chaos, a catastrophe on a scale nobody, and I mean nobody, was prepared for.
It all started just before midnight. Workers at the Union Carbide pesticide plant noticed their eyes were burning. A supervisor, thinking it was just a minor, common leak, told them he'd check it out after their tea break. But by the time that break was over, it was already far too late. A poisonous cloud was spreading across Bhopal, and as the sick flooded into hospitals, the doctors had no idea what they were even fighting.
So here's the crucial question. How does something escalate so catastrophically? Was this just a tragic, unavoidable accident? Or was it the result of a long series of deliberate choices? That's the question we're really going to dig into here.
To find the answer, we actually have to go back in time, to the years leading up to the disaster. Because the tragedy of Bhopal didn't just start on that one December night. No, it began with a series of warnings that were, systematically ignored.
At the heart of this entire story is a chemical called methyl isocyanate, or MIC. It was the key ingredient for an insecticide called 7. But here's the thing about MIC. It is incredibly dangerous. It's highly toxic, and as we're about to see, it reacts violently when it comes into contact with water. I mean, look at this timeline. It lays out a chilling pattern of escalating risk. In 1980, the company decides to start making this super dangerous chemical in-house, just to save money. A year later, a worker dies from exposure to it. Then, a journalist starts sounding the alarm. And all the while, the company is cutting costs, reducing staff, and just letting safety standards slide. The red flags were absolutely everywhere.
Save this city. That was the headline from one of journalist Rajkumar Keswani's articles, and he had a personal stake in this. The worker who died back in '81 was his friend and had warned him about how bad things were at the plant. So, Keswani investigated. He wrote article after article. He even wrote to the chief minister and the Supreme Court. But he was dismissed by everyone. The company, the government, even his own friends thought he was overreacting. So with all those warnings completely ignored, the stage was set for disaster. Now, let's look at the specific mechanical failures that triggered the final catastrophic event on that night in December.
This is where it gets just unbelievable. It wasn't just one failure. It was a total collapse of safety. The system was broken at pretty much every conceivable level. The storage tanks were dangerously overfilled. The emergency tank, which was supposed to be kept empty for overflow, was also full. Critical gauges and alarms were either broken or had been disconnected for years. The safety device designed to neutralize gas leaks switched off. And maybe most chillingly, the loud public alarm meant to warn the city was deactivated. So, with literally every single safety net gone, all it took was one final simple mistake. During routine pipe cleaning, a critical safety barrier just wasn't put in place, and that allowed water to flow directly into the main MIC storage tank. The deadly reaction started immediately. The pressure and temperature shot up so fast that by the time workers grasped what was happening, the huge concrete lid on the underground tank was already cracking. 40 tons of poison gas erupted into the night air.
In the aftermath, as the city was reeling from the death and the devastation, the focus shifted from cause to consequence. The search for accountability began, and it would turn into a legal battle that, believe it or not, continues to this day.
Right away, two completely different stories emerged. The Indian government's investigation pointed to a clear pattern of corporate negligence and cost-cutting that basically made a disaster inevitable. Union Carbide, on the other hand, claimed it was an act of sabotage, that a single rogue employee deliberately caused the leak. It is really important to note, though, that the courts ultimately found zero evidence to support this sabotage theory. So, in 1989, the legal case came to what looked like an end when Union Carbide paid a settlement of $470 million to the Indian government. But for the victims and their families, who felt that compensation was shockingly low for the immense loss of life and all the ongoing health problems, well, this was not justice. The fight was far from over.
And what about the man at the very top? Union Carbide's chairperson Warren Anderson was actually arrested but quickly left the country.
He was declared a criminal by Indian courts, but he refused to return for trial. He ended up dying in 2014, having never faced the charges against him in an Indian courtroom.
And get this, in a final, staggering twist to this whole legal saga, while some individuals were prosecuted, the main criminal case against the corporation itself remains unresolved. Decades later, that case is still officially open.
So, where does all of this leave us? The legacy of Bhopal is, well, it's a complicated one. It is, without a doubt, a story of unimaginable suffering, but it's also a story that forced some profound and necessary changes.
The disaster exposed massive gaps in India's industrial regulations. And in response, the government was really forced to act. New, sweeping laws like the Environment Protection Act were passed. The Factories Act was changed to make it crystal clear who was legally on the hook for safety. These reforms were absolutely born from tragedy, but they have helped make industries all across India safer.
But for the people of Bhopal, this disaster isn't some historical event. It is a daily reality. Survivors, and now their children and grandchildren, continue to suffer from chronic illnesses, respiratory problems, birth defects, cancers, all of it linked back to that one night. The pain has literally been passed down through generations.
And that leaves us with the final haunting question. We've seen the chain of failures, we've seen the fight for accountability, and the legal changes that followed. But with the suffering in Bhopal still going on and the core legal case still unresolved after all these years, it forces you to ask, what does justice really mean? And has it truly been served here?